Hey everyone, I get this stopped up here. There we go. So happy Tuesday. Kind of got busy week going on here. Johnny Rocket says, let's go. He gave Wrench a bunch of firewall designs. I'm not sure about that. I might have given him some ideas. But anyway, happy Tuesday. Glad everybody's able to get to the show. It's a little late as normal getting going here, but been a pretty busy week. Just getting different things done. Worked on Rihanna 2.0 last week, getting the front end fitted a lot better than it was originally. I think I showed some pictures last week, but I had to put that car on hold. Had to get Smurf back in the shop, which kind of leads to the show tonight. Get it prepped for the next race in 2 weeks. Going through the week, let's see. Last Wednesday I worked on the Rihanna Regal, and then Thursday I drove up to Jacksonville, grabbed some stuff out of my brother-in-law's house before they knocked it down, and the AC went out on my truck. So that was a fun full day, but got through that. And then, what did we do Friday? Friday. So, for you guys that have been on the channel, watch some of the videos, you know what, my buddy Scott has a 1977 Chevrolet C60 truck with an oleynik race car box on the back. So this is a vintage race car hauler. Let me see. I can probably get a picture of it. Let me give me a second here. Yeah. So there's some. I got a couple different pictures. Nope, that ain't it. I gotta fix my computer. It keeps opening in a weird photo thing. Got to read the comments on history last video when you were... Oh, okay. Yeah, my memory is short, so I don't always remember everything we talked about on there. Photos. So this isn't the greatest picture, but it kind of gives you an idea. So it's a C60 truck, and it's got this big box on the back. So it's a 26-foot race car hauler. It's got a ramp inside and ramps that come out. It's got these storage boxes. Anyway, I'm doing I did an 8.1 496 conversion with an Allison transmission. So that truck came with a 366 industrial big block, tall deck, with a, I think it had a Fuller 5-speed behind it, and with a 2-speeder in. What a hassle driving that thing. With this gear splits on the transmission, every overpass and stuff, you're shifting, and there was no overdrive, so 65 miles an hour, you're running about 3,000 RPM. Just not a real good drive. But if you look on the channel, there's a couple videos on there. When I originally brought it from Ohio down here, it's a Will It Make It video, which it did break down a couple times on me. And then of course there's in the shorts and stuff, there's some engine swap partial videos. I haven't gotten the full video done for it, but anyway, after I got the motor in it, we ran it out to the body shop because the A-pillar on the passenger side was rotted out real bad. So I had taken the whole front cap off the truck to do the installation. So I left that part off and took it out to the body shop, and they redid the A-pillars. While they had it, for whatever reason, they started the truck up with it with nobody in the cab, and I didn't quite have the shifter selector completely. I thought it was good. It always went in the park for me, but they say it didn't go in the park for them. They started up and it tried to roll away and bent the driver's door back, so they had to put the driver's door and hinges on it, which kind of sucked that they messed that up, but whatever. Here's the engine that I put in it. So late model EFI, which I put a Terminator, Holley Terminator on it to run the engine. This thing basically makes the same horsepower and the same torque. This motor was made from 2001 to 2008, but it makes basically the same horsepower and torque as the 2002 to 2004 LBY or LB7, I forget, Duramax. So without any tuning or anything like that, it actually drives really good right now. The transmission still needs some shift improvements and stuff, but overall it's really nice thing. So anyway, to get back to my story, I really wasn't finished with it. I did the engine swap at my buddy's fleet shop because I didn't have the room here or a fork truck to put the engine in or any of that stuff. So it was up there for about 5 weeks while I was doing, I had to build motor mounts and transmission mounts and do a lot of changes and conversions and stuff to get everything in there. The core support, radiator core support was rotted real bad. So, that was an issue there. And anyway, I got the thing up and running, and then their landlord at the fleet shop said, that thing's got to go out of the, we had it in the back of the shop. They actually weren't moving it in and out of the shop. And within a week later, the opening at the body shop happened. So I'm like, I can drive it out there. It's not going to be running right, but I can get it out there. So we got out to him. He's had the truck, I think he had 6 or 7 months. But anyway, he got it all done. And so Scott and I drove out to pick it up. And I made a poor decision. And just for you guys, don't do it to yourself. So the truck is not complete. And of course, time gone by, I forgot about all the little nuances that weren't completed on the truck. So I was in the midst of converting the carbureted truck fuel tanks to EFI tanks, and I forgot about that there was a large amount of rust coming out of the tanks, because now I'm pulling the fuel out of the base, out of what used to be a drain out of the tanks. I've got them tied together now with ball valves and stuff, so that the fuel pump, EFI pump, is drawing out of the bottom of the tank. So I had to go out there and I had to, pull the filters out and clean the filter, and it was full of rust. So I got that done, and looked at the gas gauge and it said a quarter tank. Well, I'm not thinking that, first of all, I don't know how accurate the gauges are. The gauge for the driver's side tank, the passenger side tank, the sender is not connected right now. And I forgot the fact that now you have 2 tanks tied together, so the fuel can be, depending on which way the truck is leaning, one tank can, it's going to always try to level itself, so the fuel gauge isn't going to be very accurate. So anyway, Scott says, hey, I got to take my Camaro out and drop it off, so why don't we just drive my Camaro out and drive the truck back? And I'm like, yeah, no problem. Well, that became a whole day ordeal. So on the way out, we picked up a battery for one of his other cars. Good thing we did. We get out to the body shop. I did the fuel filter, clean part. the guy tells us, hey, I got to put a jump box on it. The battery shows full charge, but it won't start. You must have a bad battery cable or something. I'm thinking to myself, they aren't new cables, but it was cranking okay before, so whatever. We got it started, and we took off out of the place. Of course, the front cap was off of it for a while, and I told him that he had to keep the engine covered because it's got an open air cleaner and you know whatnot. Well, I guess they had a tarp over it, but it was kind of running rough and dropping some cylinders, and anyway, so it started cleaning up, and then it ran out of gas. The gas gauge is not accurate, and it was showing an eighth of a tank. Well, eighth of a tank was empty. So just a long ordeal. Finally got some gas. I had to turn around on a 2-lane road to get to the nearest gas station to fill it up, and you know, had a 2-speeder in. I made a console for it. Well, in our midst of doing all this other stuff, we must have knocked the rear end switch in between or whatever. So we got the truck halfway around and then tried to back up, and there's no gears, no forward, no reverse. And I'm thinking, you know, what the heck happened here? And ended up it was just a switch. Finally figured out what the switch is because they're not labeled yet. Hey Ron, how you doing? Wrench Sense, how you doing? So we finally got that straightened out. Well, by then we were, you know, the AAA brought us 2 gallons of gas to take it to the gas station. So by the time we figured out what was wrong with the rear end and why it wasn't moving, we took off for the gas station. We got about a mile and it ran out of gas again. So we walked the rest of the way to the station, got fuel, got a ride back to the truck, and from there it was a fairly uneventful trip. Obviously the transmission isn't programmed right. So it's not shifting very good. Hey Rick, how you doing? So anyway, we got to the body shop. It's about 45 minutes from my place. We got there about 10, and I got home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So a whole day spent. So we should have had a chase car. Lesson learned. So if you're going to pick up a car that's been sitting for a while, don't just assume that you're going to make it. Bring a chase car so you can go run for parts or whatever. That was a very long day. Of course, the truck doesn't have air conditioning because that's not hooked up yet. Blah blah blah. So, what a long day. But that was my Friday. Saturday we messed around in the shop. I did some work on Scott's wagon, fixed the exhaust leak, upgraded his sniper, and got that all taken care of. And then we did a vehicle rotation. Got Smurf in the shop, put Rihanna, the Regal, in the Smurf trailer, shuffled some cars around, and that kind of leads me to what I wanted to talk about tonight. Piston rings and engine maintenance. And the only other big happening today was Benji had to go and have a little surgery done. He's, you know, a couple weeks ago was his 1-year birthday, and the daycare and my wife and everybody was like, you know, we really need to get him neutered, and we've been kind of putting it off, but he had an appointment. My wife has been out of town. She was supposed to be back for the appointment. She didn't make it, so she's still out of town visiting her mother. So yeah, so this is Benj with the cone of shame. Man, I keep doing that. There we go. So Rinson said, oh, he's answering Johnny Rocket. Hello, yeah, he's busy to lurk on my channel. It was just a joke. Okay. I was thinking, I wasn't sure what we did on that, but I see Chuck's on. Hey Chuck, how you doing? So yeah, so here's Benj with his cone of shame. But he's all back to the shop, and we'll go get in a shot in the house in a minute and get him some food. But yeah, he's not digging the the cone too good. He's already ran into a bunch of stuff with it. You know, it's outside the reach of the whiskers, so they don't realize that they got stuff to run in the stuff. But doing good. The vet was surprised at how active he is and had to give us some extra meds to keep him calm while he's healing. But it looks like he's in good shape and good spirits, and he's just chilling right now while I'm was prepping for the show and stuff. So that's a little update on the shop inspector. He's getting really close. Chuck and Dave were at the shop Saturday, and he was actually out of his playpen for quite a bit this weekend, and was actually doing pretty good. He's starting to calm down on picking up all the loose debris and shop rags and all the other stuff in the shop, getting in the stuff that he shouldn't be getting into. But as he keeps getting older, he's getting better with all that kind of stuff. The other thing that on Monday, my buddy Mike, owner of Ravenswood Paint and Body, came up, and he dropped off a new project. I got some pictures on that. I haven't really done anything with it yet, but that'll be one of the things we'll do here in the next week or so. But yeah, here's a 64 Corvette. I basically took these pictures for information on what, where specific bolts and stuff go. It's a 250 horse 327 out of a 64 Corvette. I already noticed that the balancer and timing cover are not correct for this motor. This should have the 6-inch balancer instead of the 8-inch, which is like an inch wide instead of the 1.5 inch wide. I guess they must have did a little bit of sandblasting to it to get some of the rough, loose paint off of it, but really clean inside. So we're going to take it apart, do our reverse blueprinting, which means I'm going to tear it apart, measure everything as I'm taking it apart, see what it needs done, and then fix whatever needs done, and then reseal it. But yeah, these are just to see, like, there's a tab there and a stud here, so I just wanted to make sure I get everything back in the right positions. But you can see the engine looks real clean inside. Not so good of a silicone job on the back there, but that's all right. We're going to take care of all that stuff. And there's the driver's side canister oil filter, the regular old school stuff. And driver's side. But yeah, so it's just different things of what need to be done. So that'll be something I'll be doing a video on here in the future, and just kind of giving you guys up to speed on what's going on in the shop. So what I wanted to go over tonight as our tech portion is piston rings. That's something that maybe a lot of people, you know what piston rings are. Maybe you don't know all the different styles and different things like that. Some of the tools you need if you want to do, make a perfect set of fitted rings and stuff like that. So I didn't get all this stuff centered properly here, but first of all, one of the big things that's happened in modern era, the age of computers and different kind of electronics and stuff that makes things a lot easier, is why did it open like that? Here we go. So the first thing is, hey Team Junk, how you doing? So the first thing is, with the advent of aftermarket cylinder blocks, different Rockwell hardnesses, and if you don't know, Rockwell hardness is a scale that they drop a weighted point onto a piece of metal, and it I guess it's like a ball, and it bounces or something, and that gives you an idea of how hard the metal is that you're working with. So obviously in cast iron blocks, you have different, especially in OEM blocks, you have different amount of nickel. The older blocks have a lot of nickel. The newer blocks had very little nickel in them. And you go to aluminum blocks with steel sleeves. You got the steel sleeves. You're not sure what they're going to be done or what they're made out of. And then, of course, then you go into your race blocks. And the race blocks have are either iron or aluminum with sleeves in them. And they're a lot harder blocks because they're trying to make the metal stronger, to block stronger, to take more horsepower. So one of the new things that has come up in the last probably 5 to 8 years is a profilometer. And here's what it looks like. And it's got a screen, so you put this against the inside of the cylinder wall, and it reads, it gives you a data, RA, RPK, RK, and RVK. And what that's doing is it's looking at the surface of the hone of the block in a microscopic manner. So what that does is it allows you to see the surface ridges and stuff. And reason why this stuff has become more predominant is because as fuel mileage and cafe ratings have gone up, and obviously the racers are always looking for to get the best horsepower you can get out of anything. The oil companies, oil ring companies, or the ring companies, and the OEMs have gone to lower tension rings. They're taking the tension out because piston rings are one of the highest friction pieces in the engine. That causes more friction than anything else in the engine. So they obviously want to limit that so that they can get the engine to get more fuel mileage and less wear and tear. Obviously for racing, they want better ring seal, and obviously with the differences in the metal, it all becomes important. So what you may or may not know is when you hone the cylinder, first you're going to rough it in with a boring, with either a boring cutter or with boring stones or honing stones, and the cylinder is going to be rough. That's why you can see the cross hatching. That's actually roughness in the engine. I've got a picture here. Let me see what I did with it. Is it it? Anyway, so yeah, let me open this back up in the right format. Oh, it's PBK, so I don't think we can. Guess we gotta do it in Google. Hey Coleman, how you doing? Cole, I'm sorry. Yeah, so here's Total Seals thing. Let me get this set up here for you properly. All right, so here's the handle of the profilometer, and they have actually a tool that holds it to hold it tight to the cylinder wall. And what it does, it comes out with a couple different screens. Let's see if I can get this. But this is actually showing the cylinder wall in a microscopic manner. So even though you can look at it and feel it and think it's smooth, this is showing the roughness. And that's where they come up with the different roughnesses, the RK and RVK and all that stuff. Here's another picture. This is actually on where it's actually sent into your laptop, and you can see it. So what they've found is, and I guess they knew this all along. I kind of knew it, but I didn't really think anything about it. I just always got my motor honed by the machine shop and put it together. But the reason for honing, and the reason why you want the crosshatch and stuff, is you want the cylinder wall to hold oil. Now your rings are going to wipe the oil off, but you're always going to have these microscopic pockets of oil to keep the rings lubricated so they don't wear. So here's what the tool looks like, you know. What they with this new stuff, now they can take multiple steps of honing to get the right. They'll use a coarse stone like a 200 grit, and they'll get the deep stones in, the deep grooves in there. Then they'll go in with a polish, like a diamond hone, and they'll get the top surface smoothed out. So the top surface smooth stops the rings from wearing, but the deep grooves in between the smooth surfaces holds oil for lubrication. So that's the long and short of what the machine shops are trying to do. Now, obviously, we as installers and stuff, or at least in this point, I don't have one of those tools. I may end up getting one at one point. You guys, for the home builder, obviously you're not going to spend the money on that, but it's something you might want to ask the machine shop when you're having your cylinder block honed. You know, do you have the profilometer, and you know, will they go to whatever the ring specs are? Now, of course, your older blocks, kind of one of those things that you know, the older motors, if you got standard tension rings, you can probably get away with it. But that's the whole thing, that the whole shift and everything. Like I said, old school, they had standard tension rings, whatever that standard tension was, and then you had like a 3/16 top ring, a 3/16 second ring, and you'd have a 1/4 inch or 5/16 oil ring package. Well, obviously that's a lot of material riding on the cylinder wall. So nowadays they've dropped down to 2 millimeter and 1.5 millimeter and even 1 millimeter packages. 042 top and second ring with a 3 millimeter oil. All different kind of packages there to get the amount of drag you want out of it. Now, when you get piston rings, like Rick just put his motor together, get like Sealed Power or Hastings. What they're going to do is they're going to give you the ring package that was original for what you're ordering the rings for. So if your engine was as of 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe even in the 80s, you're going to get a medium tension oil ring. So the hone is going to be important, but it's not going to be as important as these really narrow ring packages are. Let me show you guys. So here's some of the different ring shapes and stuff. So here's a Hastings. They got a three-piece vent flex, where he's got the scrapers with the expander in the middle. They have a 2-piece, which has got a iron piece ring with a spring that pushes it out. They got an inner spring that's just a wavy spring, and these 1-piece oil rings. These 3 here, the 2 pieces, and the 1 piece. That's very, very old school. All your oil rings nowadays are going to be these three-piece vent, flex vent style, which has got a corrugated spring with 2 very, very thin scraper rails, and that's to drag the oil out. And the reason they go to these different ones is this will pull more oil off of the cylinder wall than these earlier styles. So that's Hastings. Let's go to the Hastings second ring. So here's some more different style rings. You got your this is the second compression ring. So you got a torsional. So a torsional will usually have a back ramp there. That's where the gas can collect to kind of push the ring out. You have a reverse torsional, and it's a tapered face, so it doesn't have a flat edge. It's kind of got a small, very small taper, and then it's got this back reverse torsional piece there. That, again, that's to collect the compression gas that goes into the gap and it kind of expands. And then more in your performance rings, you're going to have these Napier. And what Napier is, it might be hard to see here, but it's actually got a little hook on the outside, so it can kind of build up pressure under the ring to help pull it out. So all these are made so that you don't have to have gas porting. So these are different styles for OEM or a replacement style cast or hypereutectic, even forged piston. This is what we used back in the day. On your top ring, there's a little bit more different styles here. So you got a rectangle, which is just what it says. This top ring will not be marked. It can go in either way because it's rectangle. You got a barrel face. It's got a kind of a half barrel shape to the front. It's going to have a, usually will have a dot, or it'll have an engravement of top, so you know which way it needs to be put in. And then, of course, you got the torsional, and you've got a keystone style, which is, again, another, instead of a torsional, it's got a machine step. And those are all, again, trying to get whatever gases are getting between the ring and the land on the piston to help push the ring out to keep the tension on the ring. Now, obviously on your performance stuff, you're going to have gas porting, and the gas porting is going to do a lot of that. So that's those are the kind of rings you're going to see with those with both Hastings and Speed Pro and any other kind. Yeah, Malley is one of the bigger companies. They've absorbed a lot of, as a lot of these companies have nowadays, they've absorbed all these other companies. But for a production ring package, you're going to get basically what an OEM replacement of what was originally designed. So, see, think if that's yes, that's nothing. So I didn't get all these set up wrench sensors. I just ran sealed power cast ring street engine. Yeah, and that cast rings are fine. If you want to step up to a little bit better, you can get a cast plasma moly top ring. And then if you're going to do a little bit more performance, like a high RPM engine, you can go to a steel top ring with plasma moly. And then plasma moly is a coating they put on to help the wear. So I was just trying to see. I downloaded a bunch of stuff. So let's go to the Moly ring instructions here. I think this is what I wanted to show. Yep. So here's Moly instructions. These are kind of probably what you saw, Rick, and wrench sense. Even though you had a power seal or sealed power, still going to be kind of the same thing. They give you the instructions. Will give you this diagram, and it tells you where do you want to set the rings. So obviously you want to get your oil ring. Your oil ring is going to have the spring piece, so you want to set that gap basically between 1030 and 130, and then you're going to put your rail rings at like 830, and then it doesn't matter top or bottom, and then the opposite of the second one, you want to put that around 330. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to make a path for the compression to go around this maze of rings to get out and seal. And then of course you're going to go the next ring. You got your oil expander here, so the next one you're going to go 180, and that's where your second compression ring is going to go. And then you're going to go again 180, and that's going to be where your top ring is. And this horizontal line is your wrist pin. So that's how you want to set up your ring package. And the whole reason is, like I said, you want to set up a maze between the rings that the compression has to work its way between all these gaps to leak the compression into the combustion into the crankcase. Now, Total Seal makes a ring where they actually take the top or the second ring, they machine it, and they put a oil scraper rail on that ring 180 out. So now that ring has no gap. So obviously you get way better sealing and way less leak down on that type of application. And to step back, the whole reason why you have ring gap in the first place is because the ring gap, the rings as they go hot and cold, especially, you know, all these different materials, cast iron, ductile iron, tool steel, they're all going to have different rates of heat gain. As they get hot, they're gonna expand. So the whole reason for ring gap is you don't want the rings to bottom out, the gap to bottom out and lock, because now the ring can't follow the cylinder wall properly, and as it expands, it'll eventually stick the piston if it's really bad. It was really common when we were kids working on lawnmower motors and two-strokes and stuff, because we didn't know to gap any rings or anything like that. We stuck it together and we got out there and beat the crap out of it. Way more, you know, you got that 5-horse Briggs on your go-kart, and when it was in the lawnmower, it's running at 2,800 RPM the whole time. That's all it's got. When you got it in your go-kart, you got the governor out of that thing, you're going to rev it till it stops making power. Well, if the rings get hotter, we didn't allow for the ring gap to, for the ring to expand, and next thing you know, you stick the piston in the bore, the motor tears up, and you're like, oh, what did I do wrong, or, you know, whatever, and that's what gets it away, or tore it up, you know. So Wrench says, I just space the gaps reasonably. They tend to spin in the grooves anyway. You're correct. They will rotate a little bit. Again, with these newer bore finishes, they don't rotate as much as they used to. The old school, very coarse bore finishes, they did rotate a lot more because they're following the cross hatching, so they will rotate some. But the cylinder finish now are way finer, and the rings have a lot less tension on them, so they don't tend to move quite as much. So here in the Mali, they're giving you, basically showing here is the top ring. There's your barrel finish, and there's a torsional slope. And then here's your second, again, your torsional shape. And there's a really good picture of your Napier. You can see how it's got a slight taper and it's got a hook at the bottom. And then, of course, here's a good picture of your oil expander ring. And what you don't want to let happen is while you're putting the rings in the motor, you don't want them to overlap, because now all the tension is out of the scraper rails, and you will pump oil, and the motor will be pumping oil, and you'll have all kinds of blow by. It's just going to be bad. Rick says, seized a few pistons in Pook mopeds. Oh man, you remember those days? But that's why, because we didn't know better that we needed to file fit the rings, because we were going to run them way harder than what they were intended to run. So the ring manufacturers typically will give you this spec sheet, and they'll tell you, you know, if you're high performance street, you take your bore times that formula, and it tells you what the ring gaps should be. Of course, circle track drag racing, it gets bigger. Nitrous, up to 200 horsepower, gets bigger again. Nitrous over gets even bigger. Turbo supercharger, again, all these are much larger ring gaps, because there's going to be a lot more heat put into the engine, and the rings are going to absorb it from the cylinder walls, and so that's what you have to go in there. So the reason the ring manufacturers give you these specs, even if you didn't buy a file fit set, you still need to just double check to make sure you have enough end gap that you're not going to seize the piston. Rinsen says burned up plenty of snowmobile pistons. Yeah, you're up north, so you were more into the snowmobiles. Us Florida boys, we were more into scooters and stuff like that. A little bit after my generation, but the GoPeds and all that kind of stuff. Go-karts, that was notorious for go-karts. We'd take the governors out of them things and ring them for all they had, you know. Now, when I'm doing a motor like this Corvette motor, even though it's going to be a stock 250 horse engine, I will usually buy a file fit set of rings. So what they'll be is, say you got a 4-inch bore, the ring set will be for a 4005, or if it's a 30 over, it'd be 4030. So the ring set would be for a 4035. So the ring is oversized. So when you put it into your 4-inch 30 bore, you have to file fit it to the exact size you need. And what that does is it just gives a lot better ring seal to make you get a better burn characteristic in the engine, because you're going to have a well-fitted ring. You know, a lot of times you can get it, if you just get a set of standard rings and put them in there and check the ring gap, you find that the ring gap is already larger than what they say the rating is for. And that's because the manufacturers do that so that for the person that's not going to check it, they're already putting a little bit of insurance in there. They don't want you going, hey, I put Malley rings in my motor and it sees the cylinder, you know, sees the piston, and then you say Malley did the wrong thing when maybe you didn't check it all out properly. Again, it all goes back to the blueprinting of an engine when you're assembling it. So that's why they do all that. That's why it's all there for you. And the tools that we would need to check the ring end gap is we would use tools like this. So this is a kind of a universal ring squaring tool. It's a triangle, and it's got adjustable lugs on it. So you put it in the cylinder, you pull them out to the cylinder, you lock it down, then you take it out, you put your ring in, and then square it up, and then that will set it square. Now, I noticed some of the TV performance car shows that are on TV, I've seen them a lot of times going, oh, if you don't have a ring squaring tool, just stick a ring on your second ring and use your piston to push the ring in. Well, that's not really what you want to do, because you really want to check the ring at about half to 1 inch down in the bore. You don't want to catch it at the very top, because when the motor was honed, they may have gotten that top piece where the ring really isn't going to ever be, because your top ring is always down on the side of the piston. So you don't want to check it at that very top. You really want to get a ring squaring tool. This type triangle tool, you can get these on Amazon for like 25 bucks, or even less than that, 10 bucks. They're very cheap, and they work well, and it just, you know, is what you want to use to set that ring at the right height. Trying to see here, I thought I had nope, must be the other way. I didn't get all the pictures I wanted to, but these are this is a performance type one. These are what I typically use, and these are made to a specific size. So you have to buy, like these actually have two different bore sizes on one tool, but you push it in there. And the nice thing about this one is the center is open, so when you push the ring in, you can take your fingers and pull the ring up tight to the guide, so that you know you have the ring completely squared off. And I didn't get any pictures of this, but what you want to do when you're pushing your rings in to test them, so you got a ring with, you can either do two things. You can either catch the ring, so your ring looks like this, so you can catch this edge and just kind of walk it in the bore, and then use your tool. But when you don't want to pull a corner of the ring to pull it out. You want to turn it 180 with the gap down, and then you can pull the ring out. And that's also a good way of putting the ring in. Take your ring with the gap like this, push it into the cylinder, and then rotate it, and then use your square tool. because especially on your ductile iron and your cast rings, they're pretty brittle. If you twist them, you can snap a ring, and then you got to buy another set of rings. So you want to be cautious with that. So the next thing I was going to show you is how do you fix it. So if you're going to file fit your rings, this is a pretty affordable ring filer. This is Emmanuel. You got little bars up here. You push the ring in. You always file your ring on one side of the ring. That way you can always push them together. Take your ring and push them together and kind of look at the light to make sure you ground it square. You don't want to get a V like this, because then the feeler gauge will be tight in one spot and loose at the other spot. So you want to keep them where they're totally square. So you have to be cautious about that when you're using a ring squaring tool. So this is a very inexpensive one. These are, you know, $30 maybe. The one I have, because I'm still pretty old school, is I've got this one. It was made by many different manufacturers, but you can see you got your two lugs there that you can push your ring up against, but it's got the handle here, so you can kind of keep the ring flat and hold it and stuff. But it takes, you know, it's a bit of work to file a set of rings like this, and you got to, you know, go a couple revolutions and then go into the cylinder, check it, come back. What I do, one of my tricks, is I try to hold the same tension all the time, and I'll count revolutions. So I'll start with, depending on the ring and where my gap is, but I'll say I'll rotate 25 times, and I'll go in the cylinder, see where the gap is, how much it took off, and then that kind of tells me how much more, and I kind of sneak up on it. Once you start getting close, I only do maybe 3 to 5 revolutions at a time to you know, try to sneak up on it. You don't want to make the ring gap too big. Now the other thing is you push your ring up tight to these two lugs here, and then you rotate this counterclockwise, so you're going from the face of the ring when you're grinding it. If you grind it the opposite way, off the backside to the face, if it's got plasma coating or something like that on there, or if it's a cast ring, you can actually chip it or chip the coating on it, and then the ring isn't going to work as good as it's supposed to. So, you know, tools like this will usually have an arrow to remind you which way you need to rotate it. If you want to spend some money, if you're going to do a lot of engine building, and even as much engine building as I do, I still don't have one, you can get one of these kind of tools. And this is an electric one, although I see some companies now make one. It's mechanical. You can put a drill on the end of it. But this with the motor in it, it's got a buffing wheel on this side to so you can buff the edges of the ring after you filed it, because it leaves burrs. But you clamp your ring in here, and you actually have a dial indicator. So if you file fit if you check your ring and you got to take, you need a end gap of 30 thousandths, you only have 5. Well, you can clamp this in here and then rotate this in, watch your dial indicator, and go in like 20 thousandths, and then double check. You can double check how much it moved, and you can go much faster and get a good feel of how much it's taking off, because every ring is going to have a different density, so it takes off material at a different rate. But these are very good for if you're doing a lot of engine building, because it definitely speeds the process up. So Rick says he used a piston with tape wrapped around it to push the rings 1 inch down. Smart. That was a good way of doing it. Ryan says it's a pain in the butt, but it is also a must. And you're right, because the biggest, you know, getting the engine clean and getting the bearing clearances set right, if you're even close, you're going to be okay. But if you get the ring gap wrong, the motor's going to have blow by, and the motor may only last 10, 15,000 miles, and it's going to be a mess. A good example of that, you guys that are on the show all the time, I did a 351 Windsor rebuild for a guy from Tampa. He came to me for a Terminator tuning. So he drove over from Tampa, which is about a 3-hour drive, and he had a 347, so it was a 302 stroker motor that a machine shop in Tampa built. The engine used 3 quarts of oil getting that 3-hour drive over here. Brand new build. And the whole thing is, I mean, I didn't tear it apart, but it's either they had the ring gaps messed up or they had the bore finish messed up and the rings never seated. So here the guy had spent, I think he said he had about $4,200 in the rebuild, you know, stroker, crank, rods, pistons, good rings, all the machine work in the block and all that. And the motor didn't even have 2,000 miles on it, and it was junk, garbage. So he ended up selling it for basically he had to part it out and sold the block for scrap because it was already bored out 60 over, so it was junk. And he had to have me build a new engine for him so he could run his truck. So that's why this is, as Ryan says, so important to get your ring gaps set right and to make sure you have the right finish on your cylinder bore. So obviously, I'm telling you all this because I'm freshening up the engine on Smurf for the next race. And because we run nitrous, that puts a lot of tremendous heat in the rings, and it compromises the tension in the rings. So I've been working with Matt Hartford at Total Seal, and we've been working on, so we've changed our ring package up a little bit. We've changed the second ring, which was a ductile Napier second ring. Now we've gone to a tool steel Napier second ring. To kind of, the tool steel is going to take more heat, so it's going to take more abuse before it gets in there. And obviously we're going to check the surface hone, which was correct when we first started, but you know, you want to double check that. And another thing we're gonna play with is this product that Total Seal makes. And this is called Quick Seal, and this is a dry film powder that in the instructions they tell you, you know, after you get your honing all done, you take your lacquer thinner and clean the cylinder wall till, like I've said before, till there's no more material coming off the rag. You can wipe the rag up and down the cylinder and it's clean, so that you got all the honing grit and machining grit out of the deep grooves. And from what the instructions on this says, you do a quick WD-40 spray on the cylinder. You don't soak it, just put a nice spray film on it, and then you take the very little bit of powder and you rub it into the cylinder walls. They say a little goes a long way, and it will actually, if it stays in the proper color, you're ready to drop your piston in. If it changes color, you still have honing material left in. But what this dry film does is it aids in getting those rings to seal, because now we're running a very thin ring with very low tension. So we need to have that ring seat as quickly as possible, especially in a race engine, because we're going to warm the engine up 2-3 times and we're going to send it. So, you know, you don't have the time as like you do with your iron ring or your plasma moly rings, where you're going to, you know, you're going to put 15-20 minutes of heat in the engine. Typically on those engines, you know, I'll do a 20-minute to get the cam broken, because typically you got a flat tappet cam, and then I'll do 2 more heat cycles of like 20 minutes, so that that block gets hot, cold, block, and hot, cold to get those rings to seat. And of course, the other important thing is no synthetic oils. Even though I've seen articles where people say it's worked and they get away with it, they do it all the time. It's not what you want to do. You want to run a petroleum-based oil so that you can give those rings the best chance to seat as quickly as possible. Now, Ackerley and Childs, they've got 2 different formulas here. So they've got this top one, which is made specifically to put on your pistons, your rings, your cylinder wall, and it's a special formulated oil to get ring seating. And then they got a second one for your bearing lubricant. So Ackerley and Childs is another company that makes a lot of racing performance rings. Obviously, you can use them in your street motors too, but they're mainly a race ring company. So those are what you want to do. Those are the kind of things we're looking at on the Smurf to get these in, to get these rings a seat. And another thing you want to think about, let's see. For instance, is gap wider for nitrous, or is it that a boost thing? So every ring manufacturer is going to give you a different chart. So let's, where is the chart for Mali? Oh, here, gap recommendation. So here's, we're running Total Seal rings. So here's Total Seal's formula. So except a gapless top ring, you've got, depending on your fuel and your use. So on a street, a light strip or light circle track, you're going to go 0.0045 times your bore, and that's going to be what your end gap is going to be. And then for like your nitrous stuff, you got 3 steps here. You got up to 150, up to 350, 350 plus. And you can see it goes from 0055 to 0065 to 008 per inch of bore. And you got boost up to 15 pounds, 15 to 30 pounds, high boost over 30 pounds. And then you've got, you know, whether you're going, that would be turbo, and then you got, this is for nitro fuel. So obviously with the fuel, it's going to change also. So that's what their recommendations are. And they give you for top, second, and oil. And then here's for their gapless, if you're doing top gapless, and then obviously your second ring. And old school train of thought was your second ring used to be smaller than your top ring. But now, in the theory was that, like in your Hastings and stuff like that, they typically are going to tell you the second ring is smaller. So what their thought process was, the first ring is closest to combustion temperature, so it's going to need more end gap. And then the second ring is not going to get as much heat, so tighten up the gap so that you have less below bod. But what the performance and race engine builders have found out is that what ends up happening, because you've got a decent sized gap in your top ring, that it fills in between the first and second ring with compression gases, and it gets wedged in between the second rings and can't escape. So it hurts horsepower, because now you've got this buildup in between the rings, and it's creating more friction, more drag. So now typically they'll use a larger gap on the second ring, so that if it gets past, just goes in, it becomes a leakage byproduct, but it keeps the performance up. So that's that's the whole thing. But of course, just like it says here on this chart at the bottom, well, there it goes. You want to call the manufacturer to get an exact. This is a recommendation chart. You can go by the recommendation chart, or best bet is to call the manufacturer and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. You know, where should I go? Now, obviously on a street or light strip, street strip type package, you can probably just go by this chart and you'll be fine. But once you start going up in your performance levels or with fuels, you want to contact them and go by, you know, run it over by the tech guy, and tech guy may have a different thing. And as far as us, that's exactly what we did. We were running a steel top ring and a ductile Napier second ring, and I told him how fast we're knocking the tension out of the rings, and he says, well, let's try a second ring, a tool steel Napier ring, and see what that does. And then obviously he says his choice would be, we're running an 042 ring package. He said to go to a 1/16 top ring to get a little bit more thickness in that top ring, and it will take more abuse, and it will open up our tuning window so that we can maybe not knock the tension out of the rings as fast. But that's going to require a different piston, so we're going to stick with what we got right now and kind of use up some of the pistons we have now, and then that's going to be something we're going to look into in the future. So one last thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, especially our hot rods. and race cars because they sit. Your daily driver car, you bring it home hot, it's going to cool off, get condensation in the cylinder walls as the block turns cold. You fire it the next morning, it burns it right off before it's had time to dig into the cylinder walls, and no harm, no foul, no problem. If you ever took a street motor apart, it's run all the time, you'll never see any rust in the cylinder walls unless the motor's been sitting. Sorry, I'm trying to find my my picture as I'm talking. With your street motors and race motors, the motor's going to sit. You're going to run it for the weekend, you know, do a cruise, go to a car show, go to the drag strip, whatever your thing is, go to an autocross event, whatever, and then the car's going to go back in the garage or in the trailer, which is a little worse because the humidity is even worse in the trailer. But you know, unless your garage is air conditioned or climate controlled, the humidity is going to build up in there. So as the motor is cooling off, you're going to get condensation buildup, and you're going to get a lot of rust in your engine. Now, one of the oils I like to run in that type deal is like the driven, Joe Gibbs driven hot rod oil, or like the green oil, which used to be Penn Grade 1. They call it the green Pro 1 now. Or maybe some of your synthetics. They're going to have a lot of antioxidizers in the oil, so that it's going to put a coating on all your oil. If you guys watch Steve Morris YouTube channel, he's got the Smurf or Smoof. I can't remember the exact name, but he's got has made a special oil that's blue. He likes blue, and that's because of their drive and drag motors. They're having issues after they've run them that the oil doesn't cling to all the metal parts, so it ends up getting rust. Yes, Ryan says so it loads a second ring. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, with the big gap versus small gap. And then Ryan also says driven makes great oil. They do. Yeah, that's right. Smoil. Thank you, Team Junk. But yeah, Smoil. And if you see in his channel, it sticks to everything. But that oil is actually made by Driven, special formulation for Steve Morris. So you want to run those kind of oils. You want to stay away from your even your VR1 oil. Doesn't really cling or stick to the cylinder walls and stuff, so you're going to get rust. But all of those oils aren't going to prevent the combustion chamber, because your rings are wiping the oil away. So the cylinder wall above the piston is going to be dry. And that's where racers and a lot of piston ring manufacturers have all gone to this product called Foggit. And this is the Foggit, and it's a spray foaming oil. When you're done racing the car, or you're going to put it up for any amount of time, it's going to sit in a trailer, something that's not climate controlled. You pull your spark plugs out, you take the straw, you spray. Right now I'm using a 10, or I was using a 8 count. Now I'm going to a 10 count. So I'll count the 10 1000 in each cylinder. Then I'll open the throttle body and spray down in the intake, kind of make a flume in there, close the throttle body and spin the motor over real quick with the plugs back in to get the Foggit oil to coat the cylinder walls where the rings aren't, where they aren't wiping it away. Now, the reason I said I'm changing the amount of time is because I did this the last race. The Smurf sat in the trailer for 2 weeks, and I had just a little tiny bit of surface rust on 2 cylinders out of the 8. So I'm not quite getting enough in there. So I'm gonna work on getting some more Foggit oil in the motor. The other thing I'm going to do to make it easier is I want to see if I can find some of the material that they make the straws out of, so I can get a longer straw so I can get in between the headers. That's a little bit of a pain in the butt. If you have two people helping you, I've seen people where they'll run the engine and they'll just bring it up to like 1500 and spray it down the carburetor, and it'll kind of fog the motor and then shut it off, or spin it over without, if you can spin the motor without cranking, without the ignition on, spin it while you're spraying it, and that'll kind of get a good seal. For me, being one person, I can't hold the throttle body open, spray the spray, and hit the starter button all at the same time. So that's why I do spray it in the cylinder through the spark plug hole to get the a large amount of oil in there ahead of time. So, but it's a great product. I'm starting to use it now, and it does work. I'm trying to see. I had some pictures. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Let me open it in pictures so we can. So here's pictures, and this isn't Foggett's selling ad. This is actually Total Seals ad. So here you can see, here's a cylinder wall that's been sitting, and you can see the surface rust building up on it. The issue with this is now when you fire up the engine, it's got to clean all that rust off, and you have no way of that rust to come out. So now you got rust buildup on your rings. And I've seen this when I pull the motors apart. When I knock the pistons out, the top ring and sometimes even the second ring will actually be coated in rust, and it's powder. So, now you're not going to get that perfect seal that you were getting originally. So this is what it looks like after if you've fogged it after you ran it and let it sit. You get a nice cylinder looking like that. I wasn't able to get pictures tonight, but I can tell you that it is what it looked like when I took the Smurf apart. So just a nice tidbit for you guys. The last thing you want is to be tearing your motor up unintentionally. And I think that's one of the reasons why over all these years, our performance motors, we'd build a performance street motor on our hot rod that we ran once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks or once a month. Life gets busy. You don't get to do all the car events you want to do. But it was commonplace for the motor to start getting a lot of blow-by 25, 30,000 miles. Now, albeit that could be 10 years, but it's like a production motor. My Duramax has got 400,000 on it, and it does not have any blow-by at all in it. Why? Because it runs all the time. So it's always keeping those cylinder walls clean. So, this is probably a big consideration of why those motors back in the day didn't last as long. I always took it as, well, we're beating on it, and it's, we're not using high-end race stuff. So, that could be what the deal is. But I think the biggest thing is rust, because that's one thing I was really running into a lot on Leo's 4200. Every time we took that motor apart from sitting in his barn, it had an unbelievable amount of rust in the cylinder walls. And that was one of the motors that every time I took the pistons out of it, they were just covered in rust powder. So, I think if we do ourselves a favor, obviously I'm using this stuff now. The more we use it, the more I think we're going to see that, hey, all of a sudden we can get 10, 15 years out of our performance motor, and it didn't tear up, and it's not getting the blow-by that we used to get back in the day. So, and of course, the other thing is to put a dehumidifier in your garage or in your trailer or wherever you store your car to try to keep as much moisture out as you can. So that was the tech tips for tonight. It's one of those things that, it was what I was doing this week, so it was easy to kind of get on it. This is something that, even on my blueprinting videos, I don't harp a lot on the oil ring portion of the build. So, you may not have thought about this stuff in the past. But I see Renson says he just ordered some Foggett. And you can get it everywhere. Even Amazon has it. And the can will last a pretty decent amount of time. I mean, it's not going to last you years, but you can probably store the motor, I would say probably 10 times on one can of Fogget, and I forget what I paid for them last time, maybe 12 bucks or something like that. Wrench probably knows. Wrench, since is my boss, is a total Fogget. But yeah, I think it's something that just came up on the market, maybe 5-6 years ago. And of course, at first you're like, oh, this is just a ploy for the guy to sell his product. But when you have ring manufacturers saying you need to use this stuff, you got to hold some cred to it. There's a reason they're not making any money on you buying Fogget. In fact, they don't even sell it on their websites, but they're telling you this is something you need to buy and you need to use it. So I think that's the proof of the pudding there. So anyway, that's kind of the show for tonight. I appreciate everybody hanging out and coming to the show, and we keep moving this thing along. I was looking at analytics the other day, and we almost hit 2030, so we're gaining again. I like that. So anybody that's watching the show that may not be subscribe. Everybody, mash the like button. It helps with the algorithms, and we'll get all this stuff going. We're getting really close to that 150 mark, so I'm gonna try to do something special for that night. So I think it was 146 tonight, so we got a month till that show. Yeah, Chuck's is hanging there, Benji. Yeah, I think he's good. They gave him enough. They gave him some extra meds because he's a very active young man, so they gave us some extra stuff to keep him toned down for a couple of days and make sure he heals good. But I think he's going to be just fine. He was a really good boy at the clinic and behaved himself really good, so he's getting there. Oh, and Chris, I'll have to give you a shout. I wanted to get the race report. Chris ran his Nova and a NASA event last weekend, so we have to get the race report. So yeah, let's hook up and we'll talk about it next week. So anyway, I'll end the show here. Mash the like button, and I'll talk to you guys all next Tuesday. Have a great week. See ya.